Folks in the crowd tell us there was a law enforcement presence at the gathering Sunday. It's still unclear what and if they had any involvement in the detaining process. The advocates say they're worried those people who've been arrested will be taken via bus to an ICE detention center and deported. And though this bus they attempted to stop was empty, they said they plan to wait throughout the day, choosing to stay and advocate for those who can't leave.
What looked like a normal morning at a Nashville Costco turned into a powerful reminder that the rule of law still matters, even in a city that tried to look the other way. Over 800 undocumented migrants were detained in a surprise ICE operation that critics are calling excessive, but others see as long overdue. Months of surveillance finally led to real consequences. There was no media leak, no political warning, just swift action. Federal agents moved in with precision, blocking exits and performing ID checks backed by solid intel. Some call it secretive, but in reality, that silence is the only reason this raid actually worked. For too long, cities like Nashville have allowed illegal labor to flourish unchecked. But this sent a new message: sanctuary isn't immunity. Comment ICE if you support President Trump's crackdown and agree that every illegal immigrant should be deported, no matter how long they've been here. ICE wasn't just rounding up names off a list. This was a message. When agents moved in, they weren't just targeting criminals. They were reasserting federal authority in a city that many felt had gone soft on immigration enforcement. Liberals called it a dragnet. We call it overdue. If 800 people with no legal right to be here were removed in one sweep, what does that say about the scale of the problem? The operation was labeled surgical for a reason. It was fast, efficient, and effective. No injuries, no leaks, just results. And to those who say families were broken up, where was this outrage when border agents were overwhelmed daily? ICE did their job. It's about time someone did.
Sirens blare as ICE agents and Tennessee Highway Patrol officers guide a bus believed to be filled with detainees taken into custody in Nashville's Antioch area overnight, some knocking on the windows from inside the bus.
Let's be honest, Nashville didn't just wake up one day and get picked. It was chosen for a reason. ICE knew where to go because the data showed them exactly where the problems were: forged documents, human trafficking, exploited labor. This wasn't just a rumor, it was a pattern. And if advocacy groups want to pretend none of that matters, they're ignoring the communities crying for help. You can't scream about injustice while ignoring the damage being done by unchecked illegal labor markets. The Costco raid wasn't random, it was tactical and effective. If ICE is criticized for acting on data and facts, then we've got a bigger problem than just immigration. It's denial. This wasn't about optics, it was about deterrence. ICE made it crystal clear. If you break the law and think blending in will protect you, think again. A raid at a major retailer was always going to rattle nerves. That's the point. A society without enforcement invites chaos. And let's not pretend this is new. When day laborers gather illegally, you get exploitation and black market labor. Is that what we're defending? Parents missing? That's tragic. But who's responsible? The ones who put their families in that position, or the agents enforcing the law? The buses rolled out with 800 passengers who never should have been here. That's not a failure. That's a step toward restoring order.
She says her mom isn't a criminal. ICE hasn't released the names or charges of criminals, but will be releasing more details soon. The agency spokesperson tells me they have arrested convicted sex offenders, Trend Aragua, and MS-13 gang members. Advocates for the Tennessee Immigrant and Refugee Rights Coalition say migrants need legal counsel before they are detained.
The media can spin it however they want, but let's not forget, ICE didn't just scoop up random people. They had data. They had warrants. They had reason. Over 800 people weren't detained for singing hymns. They were flagged for violations. But here's the issue. Critics don't want lines. They want open doors and no consequences. If enforcing immigration law now counts as oppression, then what's the alternative? Let it all collapse? Tennessee has a right to protect itself. And ICE didn't come in swinging. They came in silent, calculated, and legal. The silence afterward wasn't fear. It was the quiet shock of finally seeing action in a city that's been dragging its feet for too long. Critics claim families were frozen with fear. That's the consequence of long ignoring the law. The streets didn't erupt into chaos because ICE was excessive. They were calm because agents were prepared. What's truly dangerous is when cities forget that enforcement exists for a reason. Tennessee's leadership understood that. Governor Bill Lee didn't stutter. He applauded the raid, and he was right to. Political will matters. If the rule of law means anything, you can't back down just because some people are uncomfortable. Public safety isn't a popularity contest. It's a promise to the law-abiding, and ICE kept that promise in Nashville.
The sheriff says once an undocumented immigrant is behind bars, ICE has 48 hours to act. After that, the department only handles local charges. Supporters of the ICE operation want the sheriff's office to do more. Other counties are expanding their involvement with ICE through what's called the...
When leaders like Representative Mark Green support ICE, they're not pushing fear, they're defending sovereignty. This wasn't about hurting people. It was about stopping the slow erosion of legal norms. Critics scream xenophobia, but what they're really angry about is accountability. For too long, illegal immigration has been treated like a civil hiccup, when in reality, it's a calculated violation. The Nashville raid was precise, and the coordination with nearby counties proves something else. The tide is turning. People are tired of watching laws get ignored. When local police join ICE, it sends the right message, one of unity, resolve, and a return to order.
But the first weekend of May seems to be an outlier. Tennessee Highway Patrol targeted a predominantly Hispanic area of Nashville with traffic stops, while ICE agents followed along. According to the data, nearly 70% of those arrested statewide during the first weekend of the operation.
Let's be clear. ICE isn't the villain. They're the cleanup crew for a system that's been ignored by city officials for years. If some local sheriffs criticized the raid, it wasn't because it was wrong. It was because they are under pressure from political activists who mistake compassion for policy. Over 800 people detained, and many had prior offenses or records. Critics call that survival. We call it breaking the law. It's not ICE tearing communities apart. It's decades of willful neglect by leadership too afraid to enforce the law. Sanctuary cities failed. Nashville just proved why. You either uphold immigration laws or you dissolve national borders one Costco at a time.
ICE and Tennessee troopers are making their presence known throughout Nashville. ICE telling Fox 17 News they are focused on removing criminals for public safety. Monday night marks the second time they use traffic stops to crack down on undocumented immigrants.
The operation at Costco wasn't just a raid, it was a reality check. If you think immigration law should be optional, think again. Over 800 deportations in a single day, without violence, without injury, proves that order is possible. But order isn't always comfortable. Critics say ICE used fear. Maybe so. But fear of consequences is exactly what the system needs right now. Enough loopholes, enough excuses. When people come here illegally and remain under the radar for years, it takes bold action to restore balance. That's what this was. A clear message, break the law, and eventually someone will knock.